Hello and welcome back to our news update, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Stalia Stremska. Following Saturday's bombshell announcement that US President Donald Trump will impose 30% tariffs on certain European goods, the EU is keeping it cool, with Brussels saying it will continue to engage with Washington in, quote, good faith on trade. Our correspondent Alex Cadier is in Brussels. Hello, Alex. Good to see you. So how is the EU gearing up for all of this?
Well, if you want peace, be ready for war. Those were the words of the Danish Foreign Minister, Lars Rasmussen. He was chairing the meeting today of European Union trade ministers, focusing, of course, on those EU-US relations. Mind you, this meeting was supposed to focus on trade relations with China. But of course, Donald Trump's letters completely upended that. We heard from Maroš Šefčovič, the EU's trade negotiator, trade commissioner, who's been going back and forth with the Americans, trying to reach a deal. Now, the Danish foreign minister, who said if you want peace, you must be ready for war, expanded on that a little bit. He said the EU has to be ready to retaliate if it needs to, because the terms presented so far by the Americans are unacceptable. And on that, there is complete European unity. We heard from Maroš Šefčovič about that feeling in the room with those 27 ministers. Let's have a listen to how he described it.
As it was also very obvious from the discussions today, the 30% is absolutely unacceptable. This is the level which is absolute prohibitive to any trade. So in this case, we clearly would negotiate as intensely as required.
So clearly the idea of 30% tariffs, unacceptable to the EU's trade commissioner, unacceptable to those ministers also in the room, unacceptable to the member states. Šefčovič went on to say that the Commission is preparing another list of goods which could be included in the EU's retaliatory measures, amounting to up to 72 billion euros worth of imports. That is the European Union showing its teeth. Šefčovič saying that that is not the end of the EU's toolbox to retaliate. Rasmussen, the Danish minister, saying that we should not underestimate our power. The European Union, nevertheless, despite that show of teeth, despite the flexing of muscles here in Brussels, the message to the United States was clear. We want to negotiate. We just heard in the last few moments from Minister Baranowski of Poland. He said, of course, the retaliatory measures are on the table, but we are still negotiating. The priority for the EU is to get a deal before that August 1st deadline with Donald Trump's administration. But if that fails, they are ready to retaliate if they have to.
Alex Cadier reporting from Brussels. Thank you, much appreciated. Meanwhile, tensions continue to rise between Slovakia and the rest of the EU over the proposed 18th package of sanctions on Russia. Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico has pushed back against Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala, called to support the package. Fico insists that Slovakia needs clear guarantees it will still have access to affordable gas after the EU's planned 2028 ban on Russian imports. In a message posted on X, Fico emphasized Slovakia's sovereignty and linked the sanctions approval to energy security concerns. Fico invited Fiala to a joint government meeting in Slovakia to ease tensions and discuss the issue further. Earlier, the Czech Prime Minister has publicly urged his Slovakian counterpart not to block the European Union's 18th sanctions package against Russia, citing shared historical experiences and the need for European unity. The EU Foreign Affairs Council is set to reconvene on July 15th with hopes of reaching a compromise. A violent clash at the Polish-Belarusian border has left a Polish soldier injured. The incident occurred when a group of Afghan migrants tried to cross the border illegally. The situation at the border continues to pose a serious challenge for Poland's border guards and military forces.
This was a group of 9 migrants who were initially all crossing the border illegally. 7 of them very quickly retreated and returned to the Belarusian side. Then the remaining 2 continued pushing into Polish territory. These kinds of attempts of crossing the border are practically a daily occurrence. Depending on the weather and terrain conditions, we note from a dozen to a few dozen, and sometimes even over 100 attempts of illegal border crossings. So this This is nothing new to us. We are here to do our best to support the border guard and, to the best of our ability, guarantee the safety of Polish citizens.
Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius is visiting Washington to discuss continued support for Ukraine with his US counterpart Pete Hegseth. Last week at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome, Chancellor Friedrich Merz said Germany was ready to purchase US-made Patriot air defense systems for Ukraine. Procurement of 2 such systems is reportedly in progress, with a third funded by Norway.
In recent days, there have been positive signals from our U.S. partners on the subject of air defense systems and Patriots. German Defense Minister Pistorius is on his way to Washington right now and will continue these talks, this coordination, today. If you recall the genesis, originally 2 Patriot systems were also requested by the German Chancellor in the telephone conversation, and the Chancellor spoke to the American president again on Friday. In the course of these talks, which certainly went on for more than a week now, the number increased. Now we are, according to the American view, talking about more than 2 systems, and the needs of Ukraine are, as you rightly say, higher.
An investigation by the Institute of National Remembrance has been launched against Jagos Brown due to his denial of the genocide in the Nazi German Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration and extermination camp. Polish MEP Jagos Brown is being investigated by the Institute of National Remembrance due to publicly denying, opposed to established facts, the genocide committed at Auschwitz-Birkenau. Brown made a statement during an interview on July 10th with Radio Wnet, saying that gas chambers which functioned at Auschwitz and were run by Nazi Germans were fake. The prosecutor at the Institute's Kraków branch made the decision to launch an investigation into the politician. After more than 2 weeks in orbit, the crew of the Axiom 4 mission, including Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski, is heading back home to Earth from the International Space Station.
The Dragon capsule undocked shortly after 11 a.m. GMT on Monday. After a 22.5-hour journey, the crew is expected to splash down off the coast of California at 5:44 GMT on Tuesday. The mission began on June 25th with the launch of a historic spaceflight with Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski. The Dragon capsule docked at the International Space Station 1 day later. Over the course of the mission, the astronaut conducted a total of 13 scientific experiments. He is the second Pole in history to travel to space.
Famous Polish photographer Tadeusz Rolke has died at the age of 96. The sad news was confirmed by the Polish Association of Art Photographers. Rolke was famous for showcasing life in Poland through his photography before and after World War II. Over the course of his career, he worked with multiple popular Polish magazines. After World War II, he photographed the ruins of Warsaw, including the destroyed city centre and what remained of the ghetto, following German efforts to put down the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. In the 1970s, he moved to Germany, where he spent the next 10 years working on a photo project about one of Europe's biggest markets, the fish market in Hamburg. He returned to Poland in the 1980s and continued taking photos for top Polish magazines. For his work, he received the Gloria Artist Gold Medal, one of Poland's top cultural awards. Wimbledon champions Poland's Iga Świątek and Italy's Jannik Sinner remain true to tradition, exchanging grass courts for a dance floor at the Champions Dinner thrown by tournament organizers on the weekend. Take a look.
In a tradition that began 150 years ago, the winners of Wimbledon have been showing off their dance moves at the tournament gala. This year was no different, as Polish tennis star Iga Świątek, dressed in a shining gown, and Jannik Sinner, wearing a sharp tux, put on their dancing shoes. For both Świątek and Sinner, this was the first triumph at the tournament.
And with this wonderful news, we conclude our news recap. Thank you for watching. The Bottom Line coming up next.